Well, maybe this is a secondary game for a lot of you then tonight, but the Dallas Cowboys did play the New York Giants last night, and it came right down to the wire in terms of the point spread. Kind of a wild finish there. Dallas does pick up the win. And so, did they look great? Probably not. They played the Giants, but they do win 20-15. Dak Prescott threw a couple of touchdown passes. Malik Nabers, the star wide receiver, not just on the Giants, but in the NFL, also had a big game. We'll talk about him in just a minute. Needless to say, Dak Prescott in a road game when he needed it came up big, throwing a couple of touchdowns. One was to Rico Daboll. And so right now, Dallas has put themselves back into at least a conversation for playoff positioning. The Giants, of course, haven't looked good all season long outside of last week against Cleveland. Here's Dak after the game talking about picking up the road win.
It was huge. It was huge. Yeah, after obviously losing two, especially at home. Coming on the road, first division game. Division wins are always tough. As I said, then you add on the road before a long weekend. Puts a better taste in our mouth. But at the end of the day, as I've said, even after those two losses a couple weeks, or the past 2 weeks, it's a process. So we're not going to get complacent. We're not going to get overexcited about what we've done tonight. It's about building, and it's about figuring out what we can do better in all phases. But it's a lot easier to do that with the win.
Yeah, meanwhile, the heat is on the New York Giants. That was a home loss yesterday. Tough to swallow there for everyone involved, especially the head coach, Brian Daboll, who is certainly on the hot seat, I would think, moving forward. He talked about dropping this one to Dallas.
All right, tough game, competitive game. Came down there to the end. Missed a couple opportunities to advance the ball or keep drives going. Thought the quarterback played well. Made a lot of good decisions, throws. Couldn't get our run game going. Tried a variety of runs. Give them credit; they did a good job of shutting down our run game. So that was huge. The big play to 88, but again, competitive game. Give them a lot of credit. Tough one.
Yeah, tough for Devin Singletary, as he mentioned, on the ground, under 30 yards rushing. The big story from the Giants' perspective last night was another great game for Malik Nabers, who had over 11 catches for over 100 yards, but needless to say, left this game late with a concussion. Now, that's the bad news. The good news is this morning, Nabers has already gone on Instagram and says he's okay. Now, what does that mean? We really don't know. There's been a lot of very serious protocols being placed, especially this year more than ever with concussions. We've seen players miss games. There's a receiver right now on the Philadelphia Eagles, Devonta Smith, who has not cleared concussion protocol, by the way, after thinking maybe he was okay after last week's game too. So I guess 10 days to play for Nabers before the next game. That's the good news for him. Meanwhile, let's go over to college football. Of course, a big week coming, Alabama and Georgia. We'll have a full preview of that one. But the Mountain West did get 7 commitments, which is what they were looking for to expand the conference. Air Force, UNLV, New Mexico, Nevada, San Jose State, Wyoming, and Hawaii signed a memorandum of understanding. I like that. Memorandum of understanding to stay in the league, with all of them agreeing to execute a grant of media rights, because that's really what the bottom line is. They got to sell the TV rights, 2026 through 2032. Texas State basically could be one of those teams that expands. Statement from the Mountain West, here it is. The agreements announced Monday mark a historic moment for the Mountain West, provide much-needed stability and clarity as the world of intercollegiate athletics continues to evolve rapidly. We're excited about the future and the next steps in expansion. Micah Parsons of the Dallas Cowboys also left the game last night and undergoing an MRI on his ankles. X-rays were negative. He could potentially be fine. I'm hesitant to say that with any injury in the NFL. The Lions have ruled out their key center, Frank Ragnow, for Monday night with a pectoral injury. Campbell said they're going to shut him down for this week. Justin Herbert, limited for a second day of practice. He says he's progressing. The Chargers went to Taylor Heineke in the fourth quarter of that game against the Steelers last week. Also, Andy Dalton takes on the Cincinnati Bengals this week and says you can't take them lightly. I think that's probably fair to say. All right, college football game tonight. A big one for one of the top 10 teams in all of college football playing at home. Not the best weather tonight here in South Florida, but number 7 Miami will take on Virginia Tech. 17.5-point favorites. The total is 53 as they will play that game in Miami Gardens tonight. Also, Washington will take on Rutgers. Scarlet Knights are 2-point favorites, down from 2.5. Total is 44 in that one. Also, in case you missed it last night in college football, Army won and covered the spread. Temple is not having a good season, 42-14 the final there. Also, Oregon has landed 5-star offensive lineman Douglas Utu in a flip in the portal from the University of Tennessee. Major League Baseball is going right down to the wire, and the key right now is the wild card in the American League and the wild card in the National League. We know the NL could go down to Monday. Here's the status right now of the American League. Baltimore is in, and the final wild card spots go down to Detroit, Kansas City, and Minnesota. The Twins, believe it or not, lost again to the Marlins last night. So all the Tigers or Royals need to do is win, combined with a Minnesota Twins loss of any kind, and both those teams are in. So basically magic number down to, I believe, a half for both of those teams. So Twins need to win out. Tigers, Royals would need to lose out. Otherwise, those teams are in, and a collapse by the Twins indeed. The Dodgers have clinched the National League West. Maybe took them a little bit more time than they wanted. Freddie Freeman exited this game with an injury. We'll keep an eye on his status. The Yankees beat the Orioles 10-1. Who hit a home run? None other than Aaron Judge yet again. 60 is now within reach. Will they play him the last couple of games? I guess we'll see. He's got 58 home runs as he heads into the weekend. Another big story from Major League Baseball, a very emotional scene at the Oakland Coliseum. The final game played by the Oakland A's or anyone else there as they now play in Sacramento next season. I thought there was an incredible scene yesterday. Great job by the fans showing up for that game. A lot of emotion. They pick up the victory. Also, Tampa Bay Rays former shortstop, I guess, probably fair to say, Wander Franco is going to stand trial on charges for sexual abuse of a minor, and that's going to happen over the next month or so. The WNBA is seeing all-time high in ratings thanks to some great play, and let's also thank Caitlin Clark for that. It was cable's most viewed WNBA game ever. 2.5 million viewers catching that affair. The Chicago Sky have fired Teresa Weatherspoon after just one season as coach, 13-27 on the season there. The NHL Players Association has filed a grievance on behalf of center Ryan Johansson after the Flyers terminated his contract. He was owed $8 million. Needless to say, they'll try to recoup that if they can. Coming up next, Bill Bender is going to join us here on the show. What is the current line between Georgia and Alabama? I'm going to have to it has changed so much. 3, 2.5, 2, 1.5, 2. During this break, I'm going to check this myself over on FanDuel and DraftKings. Welcome back to Newswire here on SportsGrid. A little surprised here that we don't have any pre-Breeders' Cup preview here as we get toward that season here. I don't see anything here on the show there. Actually had a horse racing conversation on the phone this week, if you can believe that. And I'm not even doing that on the show today. That's okay. Jim Gazzali is with us from Legal Sports Report. We'll have the very latest on Pennsylvania, some online casino numbers as well. Jim, great to see you here on the show. And your prime time's coming up here, not too long from now.
Hey, if you want to mix in a Breeders' Cup story, I can go off the cuff on anything horse racing that you want to talk about, Craig.
I know you can. All right, well, let's focus on now, and we'll start off with a report that you can read over at LegalSportsReport.com on the state of Michigan, and one of those states that seems to be thriving in the world of sports betting, regardless of the sport, regardless of the time of the year, positive numbers coming in from them.
Yeah, Michigan's been a bit of an interesting market that I've been following somewhat closely over the last handful of months, and what we've seen, Craig, is just continuing to have those year-over-year gains each and every month. And August marked 12 consecutive months of those annual increases in handle. Just shy of $290 million bet in August, which was up from a little less than $230 million in August 2023. FanDuel, DraftKings still really dominating that market, more so, FanDuel leaders in handle and revenue pretty much on a consistent monthly basis in Michigan. But one thing that did stick out to me from that August report in Michigan was Caesars, and they had 6.5% of market handle in August, and that's one of their highest market shares of handle since the beginning of the year. And they've been slowly creeping up and up and up in that market share with the betting volume for Caesars in Michigan, which I found quite interesting as we kind of look at the entire landscape of the sports betting industry in the U.S. And we'll touch on New Jersey here in the next couple of minutes, but pretty much widespread gains in August year over year for just about every market that we've seen. Michigan, like I said, no different. And that Caesars figure really stuck out to me as they have really increased that market share of handle over the last handful of months. Now, of course, as we get into the September, October, November numbers, which will be coming out here in the next couple of weeks and months with the bulk of NFL betting taking place, we'll see what sort of staying power Caesars has. We'll see if FanDuel, DraftKings really cement themselves as the leaders of the market like they are, and see what they do throughout football season. But at least through the summer, pretty positive signs for Caesars in Michigan, Craig.
All right, good news there for Michigan. Now let's get to Pennsylvania, and very similar to other states around the country, the way to entice new sports bettors into their site or their app, or to just simply make a bet, is definitely by doing these promos, not just parlays, Jim, but promos as well. Tell us more.
Yeah, so in Pennsylvania, we have seen in the last 2 months, July and August, which we have the reports for, is that promo spending nearly doubled in both months when compared to those same months, July and August of 2023. And typically, what I found interesting would be, you'd figured you would see those promo increases start in September when NFL betting kicks off, but it seems like in the last couple of months, and even going back to last year, that promo spending is starting to increase a bit earlier and earlier, at least in Pennsylvania's case. Now, they did spend about $15 million, the sportsbooks did, in those free bet giveaways in Pennsylvania in August, and that $15 million was up from about $8.5 or so million in August of 2023. FanDuel, DraftKings are the two main heavy spenders in that market for July and August as well. So again, we'll see what happens when that September report comes out in the next handful of weeks. Last September, promotional spending, jumped to about $30 million for the month. So I'm expecting to see a very similar figure. Perhaps if July and August are any indication, perhaps we'll see even an increase over that $30 million promotional spend like we saw in September in Pennsylvania last year. Kind of going off of what we were just discussing in Michigan, handle revenue up in Pennsylvania as well in August. And again, just seeing those widespread increases like we've talked about pretty much every week, Craig, as we've seen and gone through the summer with most of these sports betting markets in the U.S. posting those gains in volume year over year. And like we talked about too, with the increase in the parlay betting, just those the revenue and the profits really increasing year over year for the sports books as well. And like I said, Pennsylvania has been no different looking at that August report.
All right, fair enough. Let's move over now to New Jersey, where, again, a story over Legal Sports Report is telling us the month of August was extremely profitable on the casino end. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, certainly a profitable month for the online casino operators, posting record revenue at $198.4 million in the month of August. It's the most, the highest revenue in a single month in New Jersey. And just talking with some of our analysts at Legal Sports Report on the online casino side, they're expecting that total is going to surpass $200 million in September and throughout the fall. Just kind of looking at the trends over the last year and what they're expecting to see in September, October, and beyond. So perhaps a short-lived record for New Jersey online casino revenue as we get into the fall. Now, contrary to what we were just discussing for Michigan, Pennsylvania, and just about every other U.S. sports betting market that we've seen reports for August, New Jersey was going in the opposite direction, actually, and they did not post year-over-year gains in handle and revenue. They actually saw a little bit of a decline. And Craig, if you recall, we spoke about this, probably about a year or so ago when New Jersey was coming out of New York launching its online sports betting market. And those first couple of months, January, February 2022, when New York launched, didn't really affect New Jersey all that much. But once we got into those later months, March, April, May, June, and that continued for about a full year, if not more, where New Jersey was kind of struggling to post those annual gains year over year in handle and revenue. They rebounded a little bit and had a nice stretch over the last 8 months where they were posting those annual gains. But in August, we saw the declines start to creep in. I don't think it has anything to do with New York, obviously. I think both of those markets have stabilized a bit since New York came online at the beginning of 2022. But just a little bit of an odd sort of trend for New Jersey, considering just about every other U.S. sports betting market is continuing to show positive signs of growth in betting volume year over year. A couple of interesting things, though. Despite that overall decline in market revenue, a handful of sportsbooks did show an increase in their market share. So some of them kind of making up ground against the leaders, and that was BetMGM, Bet365, Caesars, and ESPN Bet showing positive growth in August, despite the overall market having a little bit of a slow month.
All right, Jim. Well, great stuff as always. Thanks for bringing the information to the show. We'll read more about it over at LegalSportsReport.com. Thanks again for coming on.
All right. Thanks, Craig.